my name is Bob Geller with PR Dun& Dyer. Thanks for joining. Unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you see that AI has been invading almost every area of our lives, especially since the launch of ChatGPT about a year and a half ago now. And it's having quite an impact on many things, not the least of which is how we find information and get answers online. And these things, of course, have great relevance, or should, for marketers, especially those involved with content and SEO. So how should marketers respond? To get answers, we invited our old friend and go-to SEO expert, Mark Traphagen, back on the podcast. And he joined us here in episode 3 a couple of years ago. Welcome back, Mark. How are you?
Great, Bob. It's good to be back with you. It's been a while, but too long. I'm glad we can connect up again and talk about some interesting stuff.
Absolutely. And since it has been a while and not everybody knows Mark Traphagen, can you just give us, please, a reminder of who you are, what company you represent, and what they do?
Sure. I'm with seoClarity, which is one of the leading enterprise level SEO platforms, all-inclusive platform. I'm vice president of product marketing and training, and we're kind of wear two hats there. Been with them for 4 years now and been the best 4 years of my career, enjoying every moment of it.
All right. Well, let's not be too modest because you're not going to say it, but I'm going to say it. You are a pretty well-known thought leader in the space. You're somebody we regularly turn to for advice. So we appreciate your availability to answer some of these important questions. At any rate, it seems like AI has been invading every area of our lives. And I mean, I guess I just want to get a sense from your perspective, how big a deal is AI coming into search? And to make the answer a little bit more interesting, possibly, or a little more relevant, not just search, but we know about ChatGPT and Gen AI. It's not all about search and links and search results. How big a deal is this?
Well, it's become a big deal. It's been made a big deal. You might say it in that way. Just to give a little bit of background and history as far as the search world is concerned. First of all, it's all different kinds of AI. AI encompasses a lot of ground. And generally what we mean by that is things that are driven by machine learning, which is probably too technical to get into for purposes of this podcast, but basically an automated way of a machine learning, and I'm going to put that in quotes because it's not doing it the way that we do it, but being able to learn on its own, to have tools, to have rules that it can go out, it can put things together, find out 2 + 2 = 4, and come up with answers and solutions that might be hard for humans to come up with. So that's AI in general. Google has been using AI for many, many years in terms of machine learning. It's been around for a long time. It's been part of how they run their algorithms and well, so from that standpoint, nothing new. What was new was a year ago, October, when ChatGPT burst on the market, and we had this new concept of generative AI, which is an application of AI that seeks to emulate human language and human interaction. And just very quickly, again, without getting too in the weeds or technical, it's based on what we call large language models, where the algorithm is trained to look at a huge corpus of content out there and then absorb all of that. But it particularly notes words and phrases that are used in association with each other. And it forms mathematical vectors of those. So it knows like these words often come together in a certain context. So that when in ChatGPT you enter a question, what it's doing is it doesn't really understand what you've written. It's simply looking at the words and saying that combination of words leads to this probabilistic probability that these words that I'm about to spew out are the most likely words. That's a very simplistic view of it. Now, the reason that was important was because it brought AI, this kind of AI, into the public eye this time. And suddenly everybody had to have an implementation of this. So we saw the next thing that happened to Google was Bing back in March of last year, surprised everybody by integrating a generative AI engine into its search right away, just threw it in there. Caught Google by surprise. Google was already working on something, but they went into hyper mode. They actually called a red alert. And in May of last year, announced Search Generative Experience, which is a typical Google mouthful, which was an experiment that for almost a year was only in something called Google Labs. You had to opt into it to see it. And it was an experiment with using this generative AI technology to generate summaries, as they call them, kind of a first look at answering your question, pulling in from various sources. So that's been the history. The revolution of it has been to bring us quickly more up to date. About a month ago, roughly, Google announced at their developers conference that they were now finally releasing it into the wild, as it were, and it was going public. At first, only for US searchers, only people logged in the US.
Right.
And so now we see what they're calling AI overviews, which for certain selected queries are these summaries. The concern from an SEO standpoint, a search engine optimization standpoint, is that these are going to take away clicks from people who have been getting traffic from these certain kinds of Google searches, especially highly
Right.
informational searches, that people might be more likely to just be satisfied by the answer they get from the AI or click the sources that are in the AI, which are not always the top ranking sources in Google. And so people have worked very hard to get their pages ranking high, may lose traffic from it. So that's kind of where we're at right now in the search world with it.
I see. Yeah. So it's early days, right? You would agree it's
Yeah.
early days.
Oh, yeah.
Yet I see lots of content out there offering what it sounds like very well thought out advice in terms of here's what you should do to optimize
Yeah.
for Google AI overviews or whatever, Um, so what should marketers be doing at this point? What should SEO folks should be doing?
Well, I can tell you what, as somebody who's watched this literally every day since it came out, I got into Search Generative Experience, Google Labs, as quickly as I could. I have done countless thousands of searches with it, observed it every single day since then, as well as at seoClarity. We've run some much bigger studies, tests using our clients' data and our clients' keywords to see the effect and the impact. And what I'm telling our clients right now is this is not something to be spending a lot of time on or concerned with. I'll tell you why. First of all, it most of the doom and gloom. There was a lot of doom and gloom stories in earlier this year that would say like this is the end of SEO. It's
Yeah.
going to steal 85% of your traffic. But those were all based on what was going on in labs and with the SGE, the Search Generative Experience. And these people forgot that that's a laboratory. Of course, Google was throwing it all over the wall. They're literally throwing, well, not literally, but they're throwing spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks, to use the
Right.
old
Right.
metaphor, right? So of course they're showing a lot more. When it actually went public, it went from at its height, some people estimated that there was about, it was showing for about 85% of queries in Google Lab searches. Um, our first test a week in confirmed or showed that it was about 17%. So only 17% of
Right.
queries. Now and they were very, very selective. They were typically mostly informational and what we call in the search world long tail, which means very specific kinds of searches, not top like somebody types in
Hmm.
sunglasses. You're not going to get it for that, but more complicated questions like how do I repair, a Model 6 SG refrigerator at home with my own tools? Something complicated like that. It might show up for that. So it's a very limited number of queries. It's gone down because there was a lot of bad publicity for Google when it first came out, that they were showing a lot of bad answers, even sometimes potentially dangerous answers when it came to things like medical questions or finance questions. So Google announced a couple weeks ago that they said we're pulling it back and we're going to retool, we're going to re-engineer. And we saw it go down from 17%, like I said, during the week or two after it was announced or released into the public, to about 7% now of the queries that we run for our clients. So it's gone down even lower. So that's the main reason I'm saying it's not a big concern. Also, where it has come up, we see it typically for very low search volume queries. So they're not things that were driving much traffic to your site. Even if you were ranking for them, they're not driving huge traffic to your site. So our advice is the effort that it would take right now to try to optimize for this or get into become a source in the clarity, which is a very doubtful procedure to even attempt, is not worth it. It's just not taking that much of your traffic. So kind of the story here is right now there is no story. It's a little
Interesting.
disappointing, I know, but that's
Oh.
good news for our clients and
I guess
people
so.
who
I
are
mean, it's
users.
easier, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Mm.
not in the nature of type A personality marketers to sit, wait. They want to be ahead of the curve. They want to prepare.
Yeah.
Um,
There's I
before,
think we're just saying that there are many, many things much more important that you could be, especially if you're running a large site like our clients do, that you could be spending your time on that will yield much more return for you than worrying about SG or excuse me, AI overviews for now. Now, we're going to continue. There's going to be some things coming that will have maybe more impact for particular industries. Because also at the developer conference, they gave a preview of other uses of this AI technology that they're going to be incorporating in search later on this year. They didn't say when, but they said like probably later this year. Things like uh, summarized search. And
mhm,
some people have already seen this, by the way, in test groups out there in the wild. So summarized search is like when Google, you have a type of search, like let's say like, you type in something like uh, dinner, anniversary dinner in downtown Dallas in late June with that. So it would gather, the AI would gather a bunch of stuff and organize it into categories. So you'd get search results that would be like, best places to celebrate, best restaurants with the best atmosphere, uh,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know, wines that are appropriate for anniversary, like just all these kind of suggestions with results under them, like maybe two or three results. So, and a similar kind of thing is coming for like travel experiences where you can put it, you'll be able to put in an itinerary. So I want to traveling to London in August with three small children for 3 days, and it will actually build an itinerary for you with links again to sources in some cases of places that you get tickets or whatever. That's going to be, I think, a lot more disruptive because we don't really know how to optimize for that, how to get into that, and if it's people find it useful, they're not going to pay any attention uh, if you're in the travel industry and you're like a major site that does trip planning for people, that shows people that kind of information, the 10 best things to do with kids in London in August, that like that content isn't even going to get seen unless it happens to be brought into the AI.
I see. Now we're talking, I think, not just about AI overviews or Microsoft solution and Bing, but we're talking, I think, also about chat solutions that may or may not contain links, right? I mean,
Right. So yeah, these things don't always contain links. In fact, the right now the AI overviews do have links in them. They've been drastically cut back from what we saw in labs. Originally, there was like a carousel to the side that had up to 20, links, sources like that. Now it's like one, two, or three at the most, and they're hidden underneath each section. There's a little down arrow under each section of the response. You have to click that down arrow to see those sources or
right.
links.
But is it within the purview of SEO or marketing generally, content marketers, to try to influence the zero-click text, the text that don't have links, to see if we can kind of, you know,
Again, I don't know the effort that it would take because it's a whole different world, right? What's I think what's important to emphasize is that these generative AI types of answers and summaries in search are not using anything that we know from traditional SEO. We know a lot. We don't know everything, of course. Google has its secrets, but with an engine like seoClarity, we are able to back engineer, and we know a lot about what it takes to rank in regular organic search. Um, it's not always easy, but we kind of know the fundamental things that you have to do it. With the AI, who knows? It's because it's not using any of those factors. It's simply going out when you see links in an AI overview, it's the AI, and we know this from Google patents and Google research papers. What actually is happening is the AI first, when you put in a question and Google decides, okay, this question should get an AI summary, it simply does exactly what ChatGPT does. It creates a set of text in sections. And then there's a separate process where it takes each section of that answer, of that text, and it goes out and it finds web pages that semantically, the words on the page
right,
seem to be talking about what that section is about. It selects two or three of them and they become check sources. So it's actually corrects if there's something drastically different in one of those pages, say a fact or something, it will change the AI text. And then they show those to the public as the sources. So they're not being chosen because they're the most authoritative, they're the most trustworthy, they have the most links to them, the things we think about traditionally for SEO. They're simply being chosen because they have the right words on the page.
Right. I heard there was like over indexing, at least with AI overviews with Reddit. And one question I had is it a good
Mhm.
strategy to try to follow the content, follow the licensed content? Because deals are being struck now to legitimately have
Yeah.
publishers' content in these indexes. And of course, the public web can go on these indexes.
Yeah, I think it is a big area of concern for a lot of us, some of this behavior, because Google, probably a lot of your audience knows Google struck up a deal with Reddit earlier this year, made some kind of deal with them. We don't know all what the deal's about. It happened after they started pumping up Reddit. They already were doing that. That started back like October of last year. They started pumping up the presence of Reddit and Quora in particular, these user-generated content, uh,
Sure.
sites, um, and showing them a lot more in search. They're around October, November last year, we got the discussions and forums SERP feature, which features 3 answers in a box that are from these kinds of forums. That 90% of those are from Reddit or Quora. But then since the Reddit deal, we feel like we're seeing even more Reddit answers in both in regular search, regular organic search results, and in the AI overviews, even though Google has denied when asked, said like, no, it doesn't, the deal that we have or the partnership we're having with Reddit doesn't mean that we're going to, that Reddit's going to rank more, going to have more content. But I don't
Seems
know.
to
That's
have.
what
It
we're
seems to
seeing.
have though,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
At least from the reports you're saying, that's where some of this wacky information is coming from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Two more quick questions.
Sure.
One is, I think you're talking generally enterprise, maybe large search volume. What if we have a niche client in ID verification infrastructure or
Hmm.
virtual IT labs, where the search volume may not be that high, or the ChatGPT volume may not be that high? You don't think in that case it might not be a good strategy to get in a top 10 vendors or solutions in this space, or maybe write a FAQ that is kind of oriented toward a typical chat session? Is that a viable strategy in the short term, do you think? Or
Yeah, if you are dependent on so if you're previously, I think the first one is a great example when you said that kind of the 10 best type of thing, right? So if before you were kind of dependent on ranking for where people would type in, what are the 10 best IT solutions for whatever, and you would show up organically in that, right? Now people may be getting this, an AI result, AI summary. And those for that type of query, when you ask the best of something, the 10 best, what's the most recommended set of those kind of questions, when an AI overview shows, it tends to draw from these aggregated third-party articles, published on Forbes and Business Insider and all those kind of these sites that just exist to publish content with no context or expertise. And they'll just because it's easy, it's low-hanging fruit, right? There it is. The AI looks and says, like, oh, here's an article about the 10 best technology solutions for blah blah. And so it will draw from that. And you'll see the lists that it generates are coming from those kind of content. So that means if that matters to you, I could have done a much shorter answer here and said, yes, I would recommend the strategy of going out, doing some PR work, whatever you need to do, and try to get mentioned in that type of content if you're not being mentioned in it to get in that.
all right, so in the interim, last question, but they're kind of two related questions. Do we apply traditional SEO principles? And the second part of that is, if we're not going to panic now, when do we panic? What do we do? What do we look for to really jump on this and then start?
I'll I'll call you, Bob, and come right on your next show when the panic button hits. I think overall, again, I'm sticking with my message that I don't think this is a big impact right now. I don't think um, it's anything to spend a lot of time on. The exception again might be, as you noted, like if you're very, very niche and you deal in your whole business is built around very, long tail, low search volume terms. You want to be keeping an eye and see like if you're whatever platform tool you use to monitor your SEO, watch things like your traffic, of course, watch your impressions versus CTR, your click-through rate, these kinds of things. And if you're a good telltale sign, we're calling it forensic SEO. It's not a term we coined, but I think that's what you have to do now, because you can see it, especially if you might have to segment down deep in your site. Like you might see, so you might be looking through different segments of your site and say, oh, look here, what's going on? We still have the same amount of impressions we always had, but now our traffic and our click-through rate is down. So then you want to go into the SERPs themselves, into the search results, and look and see what's there driving us down. If we didn't lose ranking, organic ranking, then it's very likely something like a new search feature that's pushing you down the page, and it could be AIO. So that's how I think people should keep an eye on it. If you're running a very big site and you're already pretty well established and you get a good amount of traffic from organic search already, I think don't spend a lot of time on this. Do it now. When to hit the panic button is if Google at some point feels more confident about things like AI overviews and starts cranking them up again in the number of queries they show up for. If we see that happening, then that's something we're going to be alerting about and watching more carefully.
Well, another thing to do when you're feeling a bit more panicky is to go to Mark's website, seoClarity. He publishes great content. You also have a newsletter out these days, the 5-minute SEO.
Yeah, start on LinkedIn. You can subscribe on LinkedIn if you just find my name there. I have a weekly newsletter called the SEO 5. That's just a video that in 5 minutes or less gives you what I think are the 5 most important stories from the past week. And my little twist on it is a lot of people do that kind of thing. I'm going to give you my opinion. I'm going to give you, especially actionable. In fact, what I actually call it in the subtitle is 5 SEO actionables a week. Like, I'm not going to bring in a story if I don't have a recommendation about something you should do or not do. Like in this case, it's like don't panic. You don't have to do anything about this. But you're going to get my point of view, and you're going to get it in 5 minutes or less. You can subscribe on LinkedIn. It's called the SEO 5.
I love it. I checked out the first one, and indeed it was very helpful, and it seemed like something really cool to check out. So I would encourage the audience to do that. And with that, Mark, thank you so much for coming on. This has been very helpful.
Thanks
Still
for
early
having me.
days,
Enjoy.
my pleasure, but we'll keep an eye on this, and we'll keep in touch.